Good morning, and thanks, Adam, thanks the council, Franklin Council, thanks DESIS for inviting me. Are we using this or?
Yes, you are.
So it's a great pleasure, and I think my role here, and it will be much easier now after Edwardo put the whole, build the stage, and what I'm going to try to do here is to really narrow down and bring one major example of what we did here within the DESIS network, an initiative like Edwardo mentioned before, something that we designed. And from there, I'm going to narrow down to some examples that we did in New York City, just to give a more practical example. So I'm building on the, let's say, the more philosophical and more conceptual things that Edwardo mentioned very quickly, but I think I'll try to connect and make these examples relate to what Edwardo just tried to convey to us. So the name of the project is Public and Collaborative, which is one of the first thematic clusters that were created within our network, which is bringing together different labs around the world around one specific issue, which is very, I think, important and related to this idea that you guys here in the UK are doing, bringing and bridging the public sector and what design can do to promote change or progressive social change. So this is our lab. I'm coming from New York, from this university called New School, and we created this lab in 2009. And I'm just showing this slide because I want to position this slide within my own university. And we are housed in the design school, and a particular design school that promotes design strategies, which is in this fuzzy end of design. But just to show that we are not building this alone, that we are bringing design and bridging, making bridges within the university, and to do this very complicated work that Edwardo was trying to show, bringing people from management, from social theory together to try to work together and build a common language and how to design can be and make a contribution. So the message here, design alone is not enough. We can make a contribution, but we are touching upon very complicated issues, and we have a lot to contribute, but we have to build bridges within our own universities, seeing people from many universities here as well. So what is public and collaborative? Public and collaborative is really this idea that we can think that design can be a catalyst to promote social innovation in public services, and also how public services, the public sector can also be a driver of social innovation. And so it's how one thing can trigger the other, how we can build a culture, how we can transform the public sector, but also not in a transform that it needs to be transformed, but it's being called for transformation. It's not that we are, with a lot of humility, we're trying to approach this and trying to establish this this conversation. So what were our premises here? The main one was the one that Edwardo was explaining here, that we have this idea that there's some diffuse knowledge in society, that citizens are not only problems, that people are not problematic, but they have expertises, they can promote solutions by themselves, they can create collaborations, and how we can really bridge and bring this energy back to government and not make this idea or think that this idea that citizens are always asking or demanding for new public services, but it's something that can be work together. At the same time, we know that governments are having a big difficulty in terms of managing their budgets, a lack of resources. So the first premise is how we can bring these two sides together and form a new type of relationship. And the types of relationships that we are thinking to explore with this project were really about imagining new horizontal practices, how we could promote new relationships that are more horizontal, that the decisions are more shared, that design can be done can be done in a more collaborative way, and how public services in general could be delivered in a more collaborative way. So this word that I think in the UK you've been discussing for some time, this idea of of co-governance, of co-design, and co-production. Just a second. So this was the starting point for launching this project. And what we did here within the network was to look at the different labs or the different nodes that we have in the network and ask for them, so who's interested in taking this challenge and who's interested in approaching this problem and who's already working with the public sector. And then we put this challenge in the network, and we found that at least 10 different labs were already working within this topic, and they were approaching this very big problems that are traditionally owned by governments. So immigration, affordable housing, healthcare, youth empowerment, neighborhood revitalization, problems that are usually owned by government. And then we started to bring these stories together. We started to develop meetings. We started to share our ideas. And then what we found by working within this local projects, that we're not only dealing with a crisis of service delivery, because the tendency, like as I was saying, like we as designers will go to a place and we start immediately starting to solve immediate problems, and trying to look at individuals and use our user-centered approach and mapping needs and trying to really determine what was wrong in one situation or the other. But what we found here is what the problem would be never fixed if we just continue to fix those small problems, because these problems they continue, they are huge, they are growing, they are massive. And if you look here, it's like we could have another 20 other themes. So what we came, let's say, the bottom line, that if we don't work by understanding what's the culture underneath, or what's the problem that it's driving, we'll continue to affront, and there will be never resources to tackle this huge problem. So the first thing that we realized that there's something else also happening in society. There's a big distrust, there's a big disconnect between people and their governments. There's a crisis of governability, there's a crisis of political representation, there's a crisis of disconnection within government, operating in a fortist way for decades, working in silos, each of them continuing to approach those huge problems individually, and also disconnection between those government apparatus and community action that we thought would be a great resource. I always, I've been showing this image here because this is an evidence for me. This is one of the huge protests, or some people call social unrest, that's happening around the world, and this one is from Brazil, and we have some Brazilian people. And these people are saying they started to complain about public services. They're talking about how can you raise our bus fares, but in the end it wasn't really about the bus fares. They're talking about, it's not about the 20 cents, it's about the 20 billion. So the problem is much more complex. So this is just to remind us that we have to deal with a problem that is bigger and it's more complex, and we have to approach from both ways. So what are the opportunities for design in that sense that we found in this process? And I'm going to show some projects how we're trying to face. One is, of course, we have, I think we are, in our toolkit, we have the skills to continue to enhance existing service structures or improve or design new structures. We are capable of really making that website better, or working on the better signage for a hospital, or designing a better voting ballot in the case of the US, and things like that. But what we are thinking that the bigger opportunities, and I think what Edwardo was mentioning about I don't remember exactly the word he used, it's really about this building. He was talking about the processes. I'm talking about the conditions. So how we can create help to design the conditions where problems can be discussed, debated, and eventually resolved. So he was talking about building coalitions, we talking also about building partnerships. And from there, we have the processes, and we have the designs that will continue to be, the services that will continue to be redesigned, the policies that will continue to be reimagined. So it's really a contribution to imagine new forms of political participation and new political possibilities. So it's more like about designing that service, but how we can together design some common futures and thinking about the social life, or the imagining, you know, how we can discuss and reconnect and do this together. So what we've been doing in New York City is something I think it can give you some clarity. So this is within the bigger cluster. My lab, our lab in New York City, has been involved in a couple of projects. I'm going to show very quickly 3 different projects, just to give a sense of how we've been operating. The first one is this that we started a year and a half ago in partnership with 2 organizations. One was the local agency, the Department of Housing, Preservation and Development. The other one is a non-profit who's advocating for better design in the public sector, and we also get the general support from the Rockefeller Foundation to help us with this work. So HPD is a housing agency. It's a very particular kind of agency that is responsible for supervising the quality of housing in New York City, but also had a very important role on taking the city from the almost bankruptcy situation in the 70s, 80s, and try to imagine new ways of developing housing in partnerships with the public sector. So this is an example from the South Bronx, and they are doing things like this, right? So they are really bigger transformations. And this doesn't mean that we are moving from bad to better, but still it's a good development, but there are many issues and implications around that. So mainly, there's no housing for everybody. To get affordable housing, you have to pass through a process of a lottery. 70% of people in New York City live renting homes and not owning homes. So there's a lot of issues in relationship between tenants, landlords, builders, and there's a bigger network of people involved in the housing landscape. So as designers, we designed this project, so nobody asked us to do this, and we knock on HPD doors with Public Policy Lab and say, why don't we work with you to rethink the services that you're already providing and try to facilitate the access to affordable housing, especially for low-income New Yorkers. At the same time, we can also try to see that buildings are not only buildings, but there are spaces where we can create new networks and we can create new forms of collaboration within the housing development itself. And this is what we are calling our bigger Trojan horse that we brought into the agency. So we're designing the project, not designing only the services or the outcomes. So it's really about bringing this new idea into this gigantic city agency. And these are ideas that started to emerge. We did this, of course, with our students and with professional fellows that we brought into this project. And these examples of projects that we did in the area of housing quality and maintenance. So this is ideas for creating new relationships among tenants and landlords. So this is a calendar for housing maintenance. So every month you could see a different issue, and this one is regarding smoke detection. So there are simple things like changing your battery that wouldn't require calling for technicians to fix it, and if you know how to do it, and you don't have to fight with your landlord and things like that. The other one is more like creating horizontal networks among residents to solve and promote more interesting services. Everything to one guide that bring together all these ideas of our services related to housing maintenance, to simplifying the application for the affordable units, for improving information and recommendations for creating networks among the neighbors in those housing developments. 5 minutes? I have a lot to go over. Well, I'm from Edwardo school, so I'll get my extra 5 minutes. So what's going on is that we are now implementing 4 pilots. And these pilots were selected with the agency, and they decided, because of the priorities, to focus on the application process for this housing lottery. And this is being implemented right now, so we redesigned completely the application process in the sense that there is much more legible, it's more clear, it's step by step, and we hope to increase the eligibility of people for this housing unit. In this way, this is a starting point to change more cultural issues within the agency, but I think through this process, the new project managers were created, project manager positions were created within the agency, internships for designers were created, and many other things are happening right now. Everything is in this book here. November 21st, if you go to that website, you can download the whole story there. The second project starts also from what we've been learning from the first one. So that it's not about the services, it's about the culture within the agency. It's about dealing with a huge amount of people who are potential innovators within the agency. New York City has 300,000 employees working for the city. So there's a really rich network that can be tapped and can be participant or can be initiators of things that we are doing. So in this case, we're not driving any project, but we're creating a platform to encourage interagency collaboration and inspire civil servants to become social innovators, social entrepreneurs within their own agencies. So the strategy in this case is to expose them to strategic design, to train them in critical and creative skills, create networks for collaboration within the city itself, and starting to incubate new projects from their own perspective. So the designer is not the proponent anymore, or the school is not the proponent anymore, but it comes from within. So we've been hosting monthly lectures just for civil servants. It's a very problematic space to speak about problems, about issues. There's a lot of press coverage for everything you do in the city. So we created this safe space for dialogue within the agency itself. So we host, as a university, monthly lectures. We bring people from outside. We call this outside-in sessions. And we also promote inside-outside sessions. So we bring the civil servants to meeting rooms like this to tell about innovations. There's no lack of innovation in the city. It's really about a cultural thing. So we to make new bridges to happen. So this is one action. Within the same project, we are now promoting this idea of a kind of civil service academy, a kind of workshop space for civil servants to acquire critical and creative problem skills. And we are doing this by having the civil servants to form teams from different city agencies and tackle another agency problem. So there's an agency who provides a challenge, and another civil servants organizing teams will work. So we promote also interagency collaboration in a very informal way. So we are step by step building larger networks. The third project is more like a research that we're doing. Edwardo touched upon this in his presentation. Is this idea of public innovation place. So this, we're going back again. So we're not designing services, we're not tackling specific issues. We are trying to build the conditions. So we think that, and this is not only our idea, I think we started this research because other people smarter than us already started to do these kind of things, and they are trying to create those sites for working in a more experimental way, breaking the boundaries, getting a little bit free for specific mandates, building networks, partnerships, launching projects, events, and platforms. We think this, so this is a kind of scheme very quickly, that why we think this is an important a model. So it's a model that design can play a really important role as being, like, as you said, cultural brokers, knowledge diffusers, interpreter of demands, and bringing, you know, innovation that is coming from the bottom up and the top down. So innovation happens on both sides. We just have to build, I think it's not the public sector, the bad guys, the grassroots are the good guys, or vice versa. It's things that can happen together. So we think there's an issue of connection and capability within, and we call this middle up and down approach, and other people are using the same terminology. Within this bigger conceptual framework of public innovation places, a lot of things are happening within government themselves, and there's famous government innovation labs. In the UK we have at least 2, Silk in Kent, something happening also here in London, and we are trying to understand how they are organize the level of involvement of government, the kind of activities they're doing, and just to try to identify a sort of compass to understand what are the best practices or the good practices, and how hopefully advise on the development of new labs. On that note, we in our recent studio at Parsons, we are designing a fictional design government agency. For New York City, and the New York City Office for Public Imagination, which plays that specific role. We started with a classic form, like, okay, we have the mayor, we have a couple of departments, here sits our Office of Public Imagination, we have our Chief Imagination Officer, we have a Senior Advisor in Imagination.
We imagine.
We imagine, yeah. So imagine, so build your own imagination office. We're in the middle of this work, and we started in more classical ways, but I think our students are really taking this to another level. We are, so we had the opportunity to have sites in the city that we can use. We made a partnership to build a field office of this agency in the city, and one of the students are not looking this as an office, but a shop. So they're doing this co-op of public goods, and these are some of the things that they're working to, you know, to prompt conversations, to not to design anything, but really to bring together government and citizens on a very hyper-local way. So this is one platform. Apart from what we're doing, there are many interesting things happening in the US. This is something in the space of public innovation places. This is something that is being launched this week to deal with the transition of the mayor. So there's a foundation who, I can say, is doing a design operation from what we heard before, and they're creating these spaces in the city where people can meet and talk about the transition and communicate, you know, to the next mayor, or talk with the next mayor about what they want to do. So this is one of the main sites. There will be mobile sites, and there are people around, and there are a lot of things that, you know, similar to what we're going to do in the afternoon happening here. In San Francisco, there's this thing called living innovation zones, where the city recognizes that there are underutilized assets in the public space, and these spaces can be spaces for public innovation. So they're building partnerships with community-based organizations and other partners to create new things. I don't know. My fourth project is just started, so everything under the public and collaborative, everything we're doing was self-proposed, and I'm just glad to talk about this project because now it comes from within government. So one of these innovation agencies in the city contacted us and reached out for the university to work with us on working on new forms of educational experiences. We're starting to design a new school now together, and this is the result of the collaborative work within the network. It's already available for download, and it's free. So I think it's a compelling story of all these 10 different labs that work within this space. And there are some 2 chapters that are more introductory, one that Edwardo and myself wrote to explain the project, and we have another one from Christine Basin, who runs a dog lab in Denmark. Another publication is coming. We're doing some events around this team in the university, and there is this new journal, or at least the title of this journal will be New Public Goods. So keep an eye, and we will be connecting soon. So that's it.